There exists an ailment called craving. It is a relentless thirst of the heart for things like wanting, desiring fulfillment, wanting to be seen by someone, and wanting to become better. This is what quietly, yet surely, eats away at many people today. I am the Buddha. Born as a prince in ancient India, I experienced all pleasures and luxuries before renouncing the world in search of truth. What I reached after countless austerities was a way of life called the middle way, eschewing extremes. Most importantly, it was about the state of mind. Humans do not live in their environment, they live in their minds. For modern mental health, it is not about the effort to get better. It is about having a perspective that alleviates suffering in this very moment, without doing anything. The key is found in letting go, rather than acquiring something. The issue is not society, it is how the mind perceives society. In a time where everyone is compared and judged on social media, leading to feelings of powerlessness and self-denial, all this arises from the attachment to the belief that I should be this way. Suffering does not come from outside. It is the internal structure of attachment that transforms reality into something burdensome. Healing mental ailments is not about changing oneself. It is about gently re-examining the very craving to change oneself. What I wish to convey is not a miracle cure, but the insight of Buddhism. I will discuss why these mental health issues are so prevalent in modern society. It is a silent war. The enemy is unseen but certainly exists, gradually cornering people deep within their hearts. Self-denial, comparison with others, excessive anxiety, anger loops, apathy, nameless loneliness, the silent artillery of modern society. Everyone is placed on this battlefield, gazing into the mirror of a smartphone, measuring one's worth in the reflected world, comparing oneself to others, feeling a sense of lacking, and believing that without acquiring something, one is not truly oneself. Yet few notice that this world has become, in essence, a machine generating suffering. The desire to be happy is certainly noble, but as long as there's longing, that wish often transforms into suffering. Because the misconception that happiness lies somewhere other than here and now is already the beginning of suffering. I once renounced the world, enduring ascetic practices as I withered in flesh and bone, continually asking, why do people suffer? The answer was this: people are enslaved by the delusion of how things ought to be. Much of the mental suffering modern people endure stems from this very structure. I must achieve more at work. If I am not loved, my life has no value. If I am not successful, I am a loser. These inner voices are the words of craving, according to Buddhism. Endless desires and the disappointment and anger at their unattainability create instability within the heart. So, how can one escape this battle? The path remains unchanged from 2,500 years ago. I will now elucidate the true nature of the 8 sufferings and the structure of modern asceticism, and discuss how choosing to let go of attachment in a desire-driven society can be a powerful act. In a world where everyone wanders in search of peace, Shakyamuni quietly advises to pause. The promise here is but one: that this discourse will not add something to the mind, but gently remove the unnecessary. That is my role as Shakyamuni. As far as the eye can see, the exhaustion of the heart is overwhelming. It's not severe enough to visit a doctor, but mornings are tough. I don't want to meet anyone. No matter what I do, there's a sense of emptiness. These voiceless cries dissolve into society. I am the Buddha. I know that understanding the structure of suffering is true wisdom. The invisible suffering prevalent in today's society is nothing more than the modern manifestation of the 8 sufferings in Buddhism. For instance, the unavoidable 4 sufferings of birth, aging, illness, and death have transformed with medical advancements, yet anxiety about death has only increased. Additionally, there are the sufferings of separation from loved ones, having to meet unpleasant people, the struggle of not getting what we desire, and the suffering inherent in the very existence of body and mind. All of these quietly lie beneath the surface of smart appearances and dressed-up lives. In particular, the suffering of unfulfilled desires is wreaking havoc in modern times. The likes and follower counts on social media, self-help books urging become a success, and corporate cultures insisting keep growing all fuel an insatiable thirst for more. And when it's unattainable, people blame themselves. This is the biggest breeding ground for mental health issues. Furthermore, modern society has justified individual isolation. Don't bother others. Take care of yourself. Don't show weakness. These compulsions have created a society where even seeking advice is difficult. But I say, humans are inherently imperfect, and that's okay. It is the pursuit of perfection that leads one to scold themselves for their deficiencies. The greatest illusion of our time is the misconception that mental distress is a personal weakness. But that's not true. Mental suffering stems from structural issues, the constant access demanded by work, a culture of evaluation fostering comparison and competition, smartphones eroding intimacy, an SNS society where even one's emotions must be curated. These structures are slowly eroding the heart. Therefore, the first step toward healing is not changing the external world. Rather, it is changing our perspective. At first glance, it may seem that modern times are far removed from Buddhism, but perhaps they are more prepared to awaken to the truth than in the Buddha's era. This is because people are gradually beginning to sense that things can't continue as they are. Once I was born as a prince of the Shakya clan named Siddhartha. The palace was filled with music, incense, flowers, and all kinds of pleasures. However, when I turned my gaze to the outside world, I encountered four sights: the aged, the sick, the dead, and the ascetic. In that moment, I realized there is no absolute peace in this world. Everyone tries to escape suffering, yet most attempt to alleviate their suffering by satisfying their desires. But this never ends. Fulfilling one desire merely becomes the fuel for the next. Therefore, I renounced my position and embarked on ascetic practices. However, even when reduced to skin and bones, I did not attain true understanding. Then, I realized the path to eradicating suffering is to observe the structure of suffering itself, not through desiring or rejecting, but through seeing things as they truly are. This is the path of the middle way. This marks the beginning of what I teach as Buddhism. It is not a religion. It is a method of thought, an approach to observation, and a reformation of living. The truth I perceived is known as the Four Noble Truths. The world is suffering, dukkha. Suffering has a cause, samudaya. Eliminate the cause, and suffering ceases, nirodha. And there exists a path, magga, that is the Noble Eightfold Path. The mental health issues of today are also forms of suffering. Addressing them involves more than medication. It involves the wisdom to change the very way one perceives things. For example, to someone who believes, "I am worthless," one should ask, is that thought a fact? For someone who suffers from comparing themselves to others, the question should be, why did you choose to compare? This is not treatment, it is liberation. Even if external circumstances don't change, if the perspective of the mind shifts, the world appears differently. 2,500 years ago, the people of India lived amidst anxiety and fear due to religious constraints, poverty, war, and caste. Amid this, I realized that mental freedom cannot be taken away by anyone. Thus, I declare, the roots of modern societal suffering also lie in attachment and ignorance, not knowing. That is why the core of Buddhism remains relevant today. I have crossed 2,500 years to speak once more. However, the things I speak of remain unchanged. This is because the structure of suffering remains unaltered, and so does the path to liberation. Now, let's imagine a scene close to your daily life. As soon as you wake up in the morning, you reach for your smartphone, and instantly emails, notifications, and social media flood you. Pictures of happy friends, reports of others' success, and inspirational posts. These things subtly tighten around your heart, and self-criticism begins. Why can't I be like them? In this moment, you're igniting the flame of craving within your heart. This flame is not solely an individual issue. Society imposes definitions of success and models of happiness onto us. Seeing oneself fall short of these, the heart spontaneously generates feelings of inferiority. However, I assert that these are not facts, they are merely structures. To counter this structure, the wisdom of the Eightfold Path is necessary. Right view, the ability to see the essence of things. Right intention, the heart that is not self-critical, but quietly cherishes oneself and others. Right speech, the words that do not unleash inner turmoil onto others. Right action, living sincerely without haste. Right livelihood, work that is not against one's conscience. Right effort, neither excessive nor lazy exertion. Right mindfulness, the continuous awareness of the present moment. Right concentration, meditation that unifies and calms the mind. These are the 8 guides to changing the habits of the heart. It all begins with awareness of the movements of your own mind in the here and now. For example, when opening social media causes unease, ask yourself, why am I feeling disturbed now? The answer might be, I was comparing, I was seeking validation, I felt unfulfilled. Once you recognize this, acknowledging, I am aware now, is the first step. Buddhism is the practice of awareness. Every time the mind shifts, observe it without judgment, simply watch. By continuing this, people gradually achieve freedom from the unconscious reactions at the root of suffering. And most importantly, there is right effort. Effort is not about producing results, it's about aligning the heart. If today you are surviving and striving for awareness amidst suffering, it is a noble practice already. The path that I undertook, leaving behind princely life, renouncing worldly ties, and attaining enlightenment, was built upon this quiet, unglamorous practice. Thus, you too can achieve this. There is no need to renounce anything. Simply observe well. Let's ask this. When efforts don't pay off, how should one live? Is it wrong to distance oneself from others to protect one's heart? Why do I feel hurt by the phrase, love yourself? The dilemmas faced by people today cannot simply be resolved with straightforward answers. In fact, often the feeling of helplessness itself deepens the problem. But I say this, observing that very helplessness is where everything begins. Take, for example, a young person. They work diligently, live earnestly, yet they don't see results, and only those with savvy seem to be appreciated. Gradually, they lose confidence and start to wonder, do I have any worth? What's at play here is the societal notion of effort equals reward, and the implicit assumption that value is determined by others' evaluations. As long as they are bound by these, their suffering will not end. However, I pose a question here. In the first place, who decides what not achieving results means? Is there no value in the fact that he goes to work today, doesn't inconvenience others, and lives without hurting anyone? Here lies a shift in perspective. Another dilemma is the imposition of self-love. In today's world, people are frequently told to love yourself and stay positive. But for those who suffer because they can't do this, it becomes yet another label of inability. From my perspective, just observe the self that cannot love itself. There is no need to deny or forcibly affirm. Simply acknowledge, this is who I am here and now. This effortless acceptance is the compassion taught in Buddhism. Then there's the dilemma of maintaining distance from others. People feel exhausted from interactions and try to distance themselves to protect their hearts. Yet, guilt arises. Am I being cold? Will I be disliked? What lies behind this is concern about how others perceive you, a prison of others' gaze. To unlock that prison, there is mindfulness, understanding what your heart is feeling by inner observation rather than outside evaluation. In doing so, you'll realize that distancing oneself is not coldness, but kindness. People today are too eager to be good, and in doing so, they burden themselves. But I once said this: those who are compassionate to themselves can also show compassion to others. The future will likely be more convenient. AI will analyze emotions, wearable devices will monitor heart rates and stress, and healing sessions will be held in virtual reality spaces. But I must ask, will this truly heal the heart? Humans are tool-using creatures. Because of this, we tend to trust the power of tools. Medications, apps, voice therapy, mental hacks, various technologies are presented as means of healing. However, while technology may assist, it cannot be the seeing power itself. Just as a mirror reflects the face, but cannot reveal the distortions of the heart. Modern mental health technology holds great potential, but it is also fraught with risks. Even if meditation apps become widespread, if a sense of obligation to focus develops, it merely transforms into another pressure to grow. If deviations in heart rate data lead to feelings of personal inadequacy, it simply creates a new axis of evaluation. 2,500 years ago, when I attained enlightenment, I had no tools. I only observed my breath, the movements of my mind, and the earth. And then, I reached the truth. Why? Because observing the heart does not require external devices. Instead,
It is in the moments of silence that the deepest conversations occur. Silence is a teacher without sound. The rustling of the wind through the branches, the sensation of your breath filling and leaving your chest, the distant hum of cars. How much have modern people forgotten to notice such mundane stillness? When the heart is in pain, people seek words. Yet, words sometimes deepen the wound. Hang in there. You can do it. Stay positive. Though well-intentioned, these words can also become knives. Therefore, I advocate for silence. Instead of filling the void with words, simply share the emptiness. This emptiness cultivates the heart profoundly. Once I sat in silence for days under a Bodhi tree. As everyone hurried to change the external world, I simply waited for internal transformation. And then I learned that truth is not something you search for and find, but something already present when you notice it. If you are striving hard and feeling weary, I wish to convey this. It's okay to be as you are now. This does not mean you don't need to grow. but rather, you don't need to rush your growth. Imagine a poem in your heart. On the tranquil water's surface, waves come and go. Though the moonlight reflects, it does not touch. When the waves of the heart calm, the moon is reflected. Truth is visible only when there is no ripple. In this world, there is no truth that demands haste. Returning to the here and now, that is the beginning of everything. Therefore, in this chapter, I lower my voice and listen to the silence. No matter how noisy modern society becomes, or how overflowing with information it is, within your heart lies an inviolable silence. When you touch it, you will know true peace for the first time. It is only after silent insight that action gains meaning. However, this is not about efforts directed outward. The strategy of restructuring how to live. This is the wisdom of Buddhism. The action I wish to convey is not about setting goals and pushing forward. Rather, it is about the choice of being in the present moment. Here are 8 effective behavioral guidelines for those struggling with mental health today. Stop. Right mindfulness. Before you encounter information, first check your breathing. Anxiety and fear first manifest in the body. Before the mind, observe your breathing and posture. C. Right view. When you think, "I'm no good," separate whether it is a fact or a feeling. Much suffering arises from the misunderstanding of believing emotions as reality. Cut. Right action. Gently let go of habits that exhaust the mind. Comparison, excessive social media, overly packed schedules. Cutting off is not a loss, but an alignment. Speak. Right speech. Do not fear conveying your heart to someone else. Yet equally valuing the courage to choose silence is noble. Discern what should be spoken and what should remain unspoken. Work. Right livelihood. Prioritize work that brings peace of mind over money or fame. It is not determined by size or title, but by whether you breathe easily while doing it. Cultivate right effort. Face only yourself from yesterday without comparing to others. A diary, meditation, or even a 5-minute walk will do. Habit is the strongest salvation. Be kind. Loving kindness. Start with yourself. If your body feels tired, it is okay to rest. If you fail, it is okay to laugh and think, how human. If you cannot treat yourself gently, you cannot be gentle to anyone else. Believe non-attachment. Even without holding on to anything, the world continues to turn. You must not forget that you become free precisely to the extent you let go. These are small strategies anyone can do right now. Yet, by repeating them, they lead to greater liberation. I say this: suffering is not an enemy, it is a guide. If that suffering brings you awareness, it is already the first step towards enlightenment. Therefore, today, it's okay not to try too hard. Just, please don't give up. What remains in the heart after speaking is not the words themselves. It is the quiet parts that the words have touched. What emotions do you have within you now? Empathy, relief, resistance, or perhaps nothing at all? I'd like you to simply leave them as they are. Modern society is quick to assign meaning. So what's the conclusion? What should we do in the end? But Buddhism is different. It waits not to search for meaning, but for meaning to emerge. When I once meditated, nothing happened for days. I simply watched the wind blow, the leaves fall, the sun rise and set. But at one moment I realized that the nothing happening was already a great peace. For you, living in the modern world, such spaces are necessary. At the end of a day filled with information, schedules, stimuli, obligations, even just 5 minutes is enough. Place yourself in a space devoid of noise and meaning. There, the contours of your heart that you have not yet seen will emerge, and if you can feel this way, that alone is enough. It feels as if the ancient presence of Buddha has turned even a little attention to my current suffering. That is the reason I have spoken once more across time and space. I am the speaker who has been telling the story, Shakyamuni. I have resurrected across 2500 years to deliver the wisdom of the heart to you in this era. However, this narrative will soon come to an end. My words may not have provided an answer. In fact, I believe my role is not to give answers, but to leave you with questions. Because a questioning heart is one that accepts continual change. It is not the one with answers who remains unbroken through suffering, but the one who can keep questioning. If watching this video made you feel, even just a little, that your heart has become more at ease, then my revival was worth it. Finally, there is something I want to convey to you. The power to notice is already within you. That's all I intended to share. Practice, meditation, wisdom, they all lie along the path of noticing. So in the days to come, please do not rush yourself and don't forget to see things as they are. With gratitude for having been able to share this journey of rebirth with you, I shall return to silence once more. Let us now move away from formalities and embrace the space between the lines in this narrative. My role has concluded, but your inner contemplation is just beginning. You may find questions like these surfacing in your mind. How can I continue to reflect upon myself? What should I let go of? And what is it okay to embrace? How do I coexist with the perspectives of others? There are no clear answers to these questions, but that is perfectly fine. The act of asking itself is a sign that your inner eye is already open. As Buddha, I have conversed with countless disciples. They all lived with confusion, anger, sadness, doubt, resignation, and hope. It wasn't that they were special. The distinct choice they made was not to avoid suffering, but to observe it. And so, I ask you again, when was the last time you carefully observed your own feelings? Do you find yourself waking up to a new day still blaming yourself? Do you have moments of silence where you can simply be? I hope you carry these questions with you, not to find answers, but to live alongside them. And if you are willing, share them with others. If this narrative resonates with you, try discussing it with someone. That could be your form of Buddhist practice. It doesn't need to be complicated. Even a simple remark like, "Lately, my heart feels a little more at peace," is enough. This channel, Wisdom Reborn, is a space designed to reawaken the ancient wisdom within you. Though I take my leave, your ability to notice and be aware will remain within you. And if today's narrative has inspired you to pause and take a deep breath, then that is the true rebirth. Thank you. Let us meet again beyond the silence. Reflect, release, reborn.